Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Science Olympiad's 2025 season kickoff webinar. I'm Dr. John Lohr, Vice President of STEM Education. Also on screen with me is our National Program Director, Dan Nichols, and we're excited that you guys are here and have chosen to join us. I'm going to give it a second, and I'll flip to the next slide as we just get the last few people coming in. All right. My way, welcome. Excited you're here. Hopefully we'll give you some good information this hour that will help you on your season. Just doing a couple of quick introductions. I mentioned on screen, you see with me, Dan Nichols, our National Program Director, but nothing about Science Olympiad could happen with just the two of us in the office, along with Dan and myself. You have Deb Mendenhall, who many of you have interacted with, as well as Jenny Kopek. And then two of the newer people in the office is our new executive director, Elizabeth Mulcairn, who just joined us about this time last year. And the most recent introduction to the office, though you've probably seen a lot of her work, is Gertie Casey, who is handling all of our communications and is really doing a heck of a job and killing it with Instagram that we'll talk to you about in a little bit later in the presentation. Just a couple of little things, I think important information about the meeting. It is being recorded. All right, so we will get you a link later this week. We're gonna have to process it a little bit and do some brief editing at the ends. But in addition to the link we're gonna send you, you'll also be able to access it from Science Olympiad TV, and that's our YouTube channel. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, the resources there, and you'll have a slide that shows you the web address a little bit later. If you would, on this webinar, please use the Q&A feature to ask questions. And if you look, that's down in your toolbar. For many of you, it might be under the three-dotted circle on the right-hand side of the screen that says more. That's where you can enter your questions. We'll do our best to answer the questions that we can during the session. There's a couple of breaks that I have to check on the questions, and Dan's going to help me manage that. We'll also post question and answers to our Science Olympiad workshop page. So we'll try, if there's something we can't quite get to, or we'll try and kind of compile stuff and post them up there. Regarding the chat, the only people the chat goes to is Dan and myself. So if you have a problem, like all of a sudden, like you're wondering, hey, sounds not right, is that on my end, is that on you guys, or I get talking and I forget to advance a slide and I refer to something on the screen, don't hesitate to remind me and show me in the chat. By way of presentation, I think I'm going to come pretty close to the full hour, if not maybe going over a little bit. So if you have to get up and take a break, I totally understand. If you got to leave early, that's great. There's just a bunch of information that I'm hoping to convey to you. So like I said, you'll get the recordings and the appropriate questions and answers later this week. There we go. So what I'm hoping to accomplish today, one, we're going to start with a review of Science Olympiad. I know many of you are probably Science Olympiad veterans, but just for those of you that are coming to the program for the first time, or maybe you're coming back after an absence or a break, just want to touch on some stuff about the program. We'll cap off our 2024 season, and then we'll get into what I think everybody's really here for, talking about the 25 season. We'll highlight the changes that are coming in 25. And then close with talking about resources, tips you might want to use with your team for the season, and then last but not least, tackle any last minute questions, that kind of thing. All right. But before we get rolling, I'd like to just kind of do a quick little temperature check poll and ask you guys, how'd you spend your summer? So if you would, I threw up a couple of things. Hopefully I captured something that makes sense or, gets close to what you were doing. All right, we're getting close to everybody. All right. We're slowing down. Anybody else that wants to weigh in and share about summer? Make the rest of us feel jealous because you were doing something great while we weren't. All right. So we'll shut that down and let's see where it comes out. So it looks like I'm glad to see the bulk of you guys are out there just kind of having fun and doing fun things. That's awesome. Um, Congratulations to those people that got to rest and recover. And also, awesome to see the people that were learning new things. I suspect some of you may have been with Dan and I at our workshops this summer, whether it was the virtual boot camp or the build clinic. So guys, thank you for sharing a little bit about what went on with you this summer. Much appreciated. Okay. Just remind you, the idea of the program here is, right, we're out to improve the quality of K-12 science education, and in particular, increase the opportunity and diversity for kids and adults in science and end up creating a technologically literate workforce. Um, we do it through a national STEM competition. We have programming that covers grades K through 12, though the bulk of tonight's presentation is going to really talk about our middle school and high school programs, and I'll share a little bit on that why. And just in case you missed it, we are present in all 50 states plus the District of Columbia. How we're organized. We start with our national office. And that's where Dan and I work, and that's where we work with a variety of content experts around the country and our pool of national volunteers. But really, for what the national office then does is empower states to form chapters. And every state chapter is run by a state director. They handle all things local. And in particular, they manage all the volunteers within their state. And under the state directors are all the school teams. And this is a school team could be a public school, private school, charter school, homeschool. And the key individual there is the coach slash school rep, right? So school representative. All teams have to be under a school banner, and it's made up of the students and then obviously the parents and the volunteers at that school. You can see just here's a quick graphic showing you of all the places where we have formal elementary competitions. Always looking to add more. And if you're interested in bringing an elementary program to your state, we are more than happy to talk to you about that. Here's a membership map showing you the 6,256 different teams we had last year and how we're across other states. Once again, I believe our membership was driven. California, split between northern and southern, was probably the most populous state in terms of teams, though New York is growing and coming in a close second. Right. And then last but not least, for those of you that may have college kids or you got a lot of seniors on your team, Science Olympiad does continue after you graduate. There's just a map and kind of shows you all the different places where we have alumni chapters. The map's a little dated. I believe we're up to 52 chapters at the start of this fall. Okay. So we talked about a little bit about membership, but give you a sense of who we're impacting, right? The real cool thing is when we talk middle schools, 31% of our middle schools are Title I. So that means they receive support. 38% of high school teams qualify for Title I for additional support. You can see in the high schools, we're across all 50 states and DC. Middle schools, we're still trying to regrow the program in a couple of states, but we're almost back to everywhere. And the cool thing was, once again, we had a 7% growth. So, and we're really shooting to try and get over 6,800 teams. And those teams we had last year involved 40,000 teachers, right, across the country, and they all competed in 411 tournaments. When it comes to the biggest tournament of them all, it was the national tournament. It took place at Michigan State University. It was our 40th. All right. And it was our two champions we crowned at Michigan State were Kennedy Middle School from California for Division B and Monte Vista High School from California for Division C. In addition to all the competing, Science Olympiad and through the Science Olympiad USA Foundation has been able to award financial support to some fantastic students out there. We awarded 2 grants again this year to our alumni research individuals, and that's Nikki Chung from the University of California, Los Angeles, so UCLA, and Philip Liu from Stanford University. And once again, we awarded 5 $10,000 Founders Scholarships to graduating seniors to help them on their college journey. And none of this would be possible, not only without our volunteers and all the people that want to be part of the program, but also this wonderful cadre of sponsors and partners we have built up over the years. So just want to give a shout out and a thank you to all the varying programs, places, corporations that are behind Science Olympiad and helping us do really great work. So let's jump on to 2025. All right. There we go. So we kicked off the 2025 season with our summer professional development. Here's a group of the 70-ish coaches that joined us along with our presenters at the Northern Illinois Conference Center outside of Chicago here in Naperville, Illinois for our in-person build clinic for 3 days. In addition to these 70 people, there were another 306 that had joined us earlier in the month of July online for our virtual boot camp. It was our highest participation in professional development programming in a number of years this summer, and we hope that you might consider joining us again. We've already got the dates set up, so save the dates if you want to do the virtual boot camp. That will be from July 8th to the 10th. If you want to come to the build clinic, again, we'll be holding it in Naperville, and that'll be July 16th to the 18th, and we'll have registration open just after the start of the new year in January. Now, getting into the most important stuff, the event slate. You can see here we have the events broken down by Division B and Division C, along with the trial events that are going to be featured across the country this year. It's good to know. In a Instagram poll earlier today, the students told us we still have their most popular events in, that being an admin physiology that was a runaway landslide winner, but it was followed closely by both astronomy and dynamic planet, which I think shows you that our high school students are probably more on their phones during the school day than our middle school students are. But thank you to all those guys to participate, and I'm glad we're continuing to offer events that capture your imagination. Some real cool shout outs. Entomology is back after a long hiatus, so we'll be dealing with bugs. We also have helicopters is the flying event, along with we've brought Mission Possible back. And then in the inquiry category, we got some 2 oldies but goodies are making their triumphant returns. One for the middle schoolers is metric mastery. So an event to challenge them on estimation, their understanding of the metric system, as well as for Division C bungee drop is back. In terms of trial events, we're real excited about continuing to work on engineering CAD in both levels, agricultural science and botany, but also making a return is hovercraft. and we encourage you to consider hovercraft for both your tournaments, and encourage you to get a couple of students in hovercraft, because that event is likely making a return to the competition for the 26th season. We're also looking at a new version of remote sensing for middle school students. So I'd encourage you to try that out and give us some feedback on that one, as well as protein modeling and some changes to that event for the high school students. Now, when it comes to the national tournament, it will take place Friday and Saturday, May 23rd and 24th, and we'll be returning to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. We were last in Lincoln 10 years ago in 2015, so it's kind of nice for a nice return. It'll be an in-person tournament. There will be 46 competition events plus trial events. Hovercraft and engineering CAD will be running in both divisions. Agricultural science and remote sensing will be available for Division B, and botany and protein modeling will be available for Division C. The schedule is published in the rules manual, and for all coaches, this is probably some of the most important information in the rules manual outside of the rules themselves. You can find the schedule for Division B on page 76. It's just the inside back cover. Same thing for Division C, also on the inside back cover. And the reason why, as a coach, you care about this is probably 90% of all Science Olympiad tournaments follow the national schedule for their tournament. And that's important because the most important thing about that is it shows you what events are in conflict with one another. So essentially, for any given team, what three events take place at the same time. And you're going to want to pay attention to that, because you don't want to put the same student in those three events, right? A student only gets one out of a block of three when they're all competing at the same time. Right. Let me just pull up Q&A. All right. We'll get to some of these Q&A things in a second. Keep in mind, all tournaments are going to be run locally. So it's up to the tournament directors to decide the schedule, event slate, including what trial events are offered, as well as the format. And largely that's whether it's a 1 day, a 2 day, whether it's a satellite tournament. So you want to contact your tournament or state directors with questions. There's a question here in the chat, or I'm sorry, in the Q&A about how do I find the state director in my state? Easiest way about going about finding your state director is to go to the Science Olympiad webpage, soinc.org, and we have an entire collection of state websites. And on your state website, you will find contact information for your state director. Also, if you don't want to go that route, you can go up to the menu, and I will show you where that is on a later slide. And there's actually a spot under menu that says contact my state director. And that will take you to a page that lists all of our state directors by name and state. You click on it and you can type an email to them. All right. So Krista asked a question going back a slide regarding the conflicts. And the question is, how do we know what number team we are when looking at the schedule to see which events conflict? Krista, you don't really need to know what team you are, because the blocked or the conflicts stay the same for everybody. So you just need to pick one team number. So let's say you take team 1, figure out what the 3 events are going on in the 8 o'clock hour. Then you go to the 9 o'clock hour and figure out the 3 events for the 10 o'clock hour, and so on. We don't change the conflicts depending upon the team number. It's really the thing that changes based on your team number is what set of events you're starting with, and how you're kind of rotating through the day. Hopefully that helps. In addition to the competitive tournaments, so that's the regionals and states, there's also a ton of invitationals out there, and would encourage you guys to think about taking advantage of these. They're just practice. So couple of things for you guys as a coach and a participant in the program. It's an opportunity for you to test and try kind of different events, different formats, different arrangements of people on your team. Quite honestly, the other nice thing for invitationals is it allows us to test and try things out without being dependent upon, messing up whether or not somebody gets to advance. You can find a list of invitationals on our website. We list them they're kind of ordered by calendar month. I think the earliest ones we have up there are starting, I want to say like October 5th. I got a slide that talks about that a little bit later. One of the things I will tell you about when it comes to invitational tournaments, you're going to see a lot of variety between invitationals. Again, they're run locally. So, and some of them are run by alumni chapters. Some of them are run by different universities. Some of them are run by teams, and everybody's kind of got a slightly different flavor. So expect some variety in terms of schedule, breaks, locations, all those kind of things. So if you got questions, talk to the tournament directors, right? They're going to be able to help you the most when it comes to understanding what's going on in an invitational. You can expect regional, states, nationals. They're going to be way more structured. They're going to be way more kind of similar in experience as you go from one level to the next. The other thing to keep in mind at an invitational is you may be expected to be an event supervisor. That's one of the ways that invitational sites kind of make this work is if you're bringing a team, they may ask you to help with an event or actually run an event. So a couple of things to keep in mind with that, right? One, if that's the case, you're going to want to make sure you have another adult with you to kind of supervise the team, right? So if you're the coach and you say, okay, I'm going to go work and I'm going to grade or run the anatomy and physiology, right? You're going to need another adult to be with your team throughout the day and make sure everything's going okay for your team. The other thing to think about is if you would rather be with the team, right, and you have a parent volunteer or a colleague at your school that you could bring along, it's perfectly fine to have them go ahead and run the event and contribute that way. So however you want to do it, but that's just something to keep in mind as you kind of plan out your experience. All right, here we are to the dates to remember. So we've already hit the big one, September 3rd, the rules came out. Today we got our first workshop Wednesday. So we got our kickoff. Next Monday, September 9th, is when the Science Olympiad store opens, in the sense that we're going to get a whole bunch of new stuff in the store for you. Right now, it's just the usual kind of things that don't really go out of style. So we have the resources for the elementary program are in the store. The coaching program for middle school and high schools is in the store. All the videos are in the store for purchase right now. But new store materials will start loading next week. Then the following Monday on the 16th, the rules clarification system will open, and we'll talk where you can find that and talk about that a little bit more on a later slide. That same Monday is the deadline for high schools who are interested in submitting for one of the new CCIR resource grants. That's your deadline to have your application in. We have a slide on that. For people, state directors, tournament directors, coaches that have to run events, the logistics manual that talks about the specifics of running events will be ready and released October 2nd. October 5th is our first invitational for the 2025 season. It will be a virtual one. So that means it's a satellite. You guys will compete if you want to participate in it. You'll be competing from your schools with teams across the country. As I mentioned earlier, in January 2025, our professional development registration opens. And last but not least, as we talked about, May 23rd will be the Science Olympiad National Tournament. Now, a couple of changes for 2025. The biggest one, or I shouldn't say the biggest one, but an important one is we've renamed the FAQ system. Dan's put a lot of discussion and thought and work into trying to make sure we actually have it labeled in such a way that talks about what it is and what it can do for you. So originally we used to talk about FAQs all the time. You're now going to see a link to rules clarifications because that's essentially what that system was meant for. If you have a question about what is written in the rules and you want expert guidance on it, you'll submit a rules clarification. And this is everything is our parts inclusive? Did you mean, like, I've never seen a word described this way? Is it I'm trying to think, do we want one fossil versus another fossil? All those kind of things are fair game for the clarifications. We used to say rules clarifications, but truly what rules clarifications are corrections. That's when we've screwed up in something we put in the rules. Classic one has always been we misspell stuff. The other thing that we've gotten caught lately on is with our lists, particularly for the biology events. And, when we're talking taxonomy, we've missed something that may have been reclassified. So those kind of corrections are now going to be, when we find them or they're brought to our attention, right, we're going to go ahead and post them as rules corrections. The important thing, and this is for anyone that's going to run an event, right, and for tournament directors and state directors to let your people know, they really should be incorporating what's in these rules clarifications and these rules corrections into how they're running the event. The reason we have this set up is, as much as we'd like to be 100% perfect and get everything right out of the gate, there are times when we didn't provide enough information, or when what we thought was absolutely clear and unequivocal, we realize we missed something. So it's important that if you're a state director, tournament director, your local event supervisors are paying attention to this kind of stuff. Another thing that we're not going to be doing this fall is we, for the first time, put out a national set of rules, 16 for elementary schools, 16 events. Because we just put those out last year, we're going to keep the same ones again this year. We feel that there's enough wiggle room in the events in terms of what you do, how you ask the questions, how the activities could be, that it makes sense to let them stand. But states, in addition to the national stuff, states are still running elementary programs, and there's a ton of elementary materials that exist within the Science Olympiad store, on the Science Olympiad website, as well as Ward Science. So just because we're not doing necessarily new national rules doesn't mean an elementary program is not happening in schools and states around the country. Another huge change that we've had, and I think hopefully you guys have seen it if you're at all on social media, and if you're not, I would encourage you. Right? We have a whole new enhanced presence on Instagram, and this is entirely because of Gertie and her job of trying to leverage social media to do a way better job communicating and keeping you guys informed and engaged, both for the students as well as event supervisors, coaches, state directors. So stay in the know. If you haven't signed up, please follow us at Science Olympiad Official on Instagram. We got sharing of announcement, resources, contests, quizzes, the poll I talked about earlier that told us that, hey, most of our high school students are on their phones during the school day, or at least on social media during the school day. And anatomy and physiology is probably one of the most popular events going. So please, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and sign up for social. All right, everybody. Hopefully, if you had watched the original webinar, you're recognizing the fact that is a big change at this point in both the video as well as the slide deck you've been sent. And that's because when we got to this point about important rule changes, I honestly did a poor job of describing some fairly significant rule changes. And going back through it and watching the conversation during the original presentation, we realized that I probably created more confusion around these rule changes than we had hoped, right? And the effort for the rule changes was to clear some stuff up. So we decided that the best way to fix this was we're just going to reshoot this next section. So to be clear, this section has been edited from the original webinar. So if you watched it originally, you're going to see something different, and hopefully you will think that I did a better job this time. So we're going to talk about some important rule changes and then a couple of other little items. All right. So when we talk about the rule change, we're going to talk about the change, kind of some highlights, some important things about it, but then we really want to make sure you understand why we're making the rule change. And we're going to start off with a change concerning the design logs. And traditionally, last couple of seasons, we've required design logs for all events. That is not the case anymore. They're not required for all events. There are, however, still 2 events in the competition this season that are asking for design logs. And those 2 events are material science. And if you happen to do hovercraft as a trial event, they're expecting a design log. Now, they're recommended for all other events. And in some cases, the event will actually give you a bonus if you turn in the log. And an important point we want to make clear here is that, guys, if you want to be successful, you better be collecting, analyzing, interpreting data. Right? There is no way to be successful in a build event if you're not doing those 3 key components to the event. Now, here is sort of a change. Before, you would turn in your design log at impound, right? Your data would be with it, and you would just have it ready for the event. However, now that since design logs aren't required, if you want to use data during an event, so this is, you have calculations for air trajectory, scrambler, electric vehicle, robot tour, helicopter. If there's an impound for your event and you want to use data, your data must be impounded at the same time. Okay? If you do not turn your data in, then you're not going to be allowed to use your data during the event. Now, the reason why we made this change is, one, we wanted to kind of simplify student work before the tournament. We know there was a lot of concern and worry about, hey, do I have the right labels in the graphs? Do I have the right units? Have we marked everything correctly? Right? So we want to take that off the table. Right? So we're not scoring the data. Right? We're not scoring the logs in most cases. So you do not need to worry about those kind of things. The other thing it is, and we heard back, and unfortunately, some teams felt that the logs were used as kind of a gotcha, that a very insignificant error or a very insignificant oversight created a huge penalty. And I'll be honest, some of the event supervisors felt that was happening too. So we took it out, right? So we're kind of simplifying things. So since it's not going to be scored, right, we're not going to require you to turn it in. So hopefully that makes sense. Dan, have I missed anything on this one?
I don't think so, John. I just think that if your students are used to doing the data logs and they want to continue doing them, which we encourage, please have them do those. And the reward for actually doing the data log will be their success, hopefully, at the tournament. So,
all right, moving to the next change. And Dan, I'm going to let you take this one.
okay.
To make sure go ahead. This one's a generative AI. So I'll let you tackle this one.
Yeah. So no generative AI is allowed this year to be done during the events. And this is going to impact Division C events usually. Astronomy, robot tour, and electric vehicle all allow the competitors to have devices that would allow them to use generative AI. And engineering CAD for Division B and C, but not so much for that event. And this only applies during the event when the students are competing. And basically what we're trying to do with this event is prevent the students from asking the computer, asking the AI tool to give them answers to direct questions during the competition. So we want to have the event being approached in the same direction, same way by all the teams, and basically we want to make sure that the playing field is level, especially in an event like astronomy that allows some people to have computers and others may not have access to those. So to be clear, generative AI is basically prohibited if you're asking what's the answer to this question, and it's able to search through the resources you have on your computer to find and generate an answer for you. Okay.
Yep, and as Dan said, the idea is we want to get all teams approaching the event the same way and try and eliminate kind of have-nots depending upon your resources and whether you've decided to, subscribe to a particular AI program or something like that. So no generative AI during the event. All right, now moving on to the one that I messed up, right? And if Dan will allow me to see if I can be better this time, all right, and he will yell at me instantly when I go off the rails. There's been a concern, and I think we've all seen it, about teams kind of practicing what I would call during like out of bounds at a tournament. And by that, we mean, hey, no one's using the gym right now, so we're going to sneak in there, or, we're going to run our vehicles on the floor, or, hey, no one's in the auditorium or the cafeteria, and we can, we'll fly our planes while everybody's at a coach's meeting or an opening ceremonies or doing something else. So because that creates an environment that isn't fair for all teams and doesn't establish like clear expectations for all teams, we've put a general rule in. It's general rule number 5. You can find it on page B2 for middle schools and page C2 for high schools. And this applies during the tournament, right? And as I talked about, it even applies to times when the space isn't used, right, for ceremonies and meetings. And now the big thing here is we're talking about the event space itself. So that if helicopters is being done in the cafeteria, no sneaking in the cafeteria to fly your helicopter, or no, finding a little corner of the gym that isn't being used and running your scrambler or your electric vehicle, right? If you want to practice in your homeroom, you want to practice in a hallway, you want to practice in another empty classroom that isn't being used for an event, that's fair game. And this is the part where I messed up, is because I didn't really make it clear that obviously we expect teams to need to like calibrate their device. You want to double check your device when you get off the bus to make sure nothing happened in transport before you turn it in impound. That kind of practicing and things are fair game. What we're talking about is trying to practice in the event space and doing it in such a way that you're the only team that is doing it. So again, we're talking about to tournament directors, reminding them that teams like to practice, teams need opportunities to practice. So if at all possible, build that practice time into their tournament schedules. And if that happens, fantastic, right? Take advantage of it. But it's got to be, the idea here is everybody's competing in the same way. So all teams get to practice. Next, we want to remind everybody, right? Adults shouldn't be manipulating the devices. All right. So whether that's the coach, that's a parent, that's your team's advisor, right? They shouldn't be touching the device. So no fixing, calibrating, winding, anything that does that you do to prepare the device to compete, that should be done by a member of the team who's at the tournament. Now, what does that mean adults do? And I think we got a sweet double negative going on here, right? But that means you should, like, as an adult, coach them, advise them, right? Guide them during their practice time, or watch them as they're doing their calibrations and say, remind them of things they may have forgotten to do, or point out things that the kids haven't, they may not have noticed. So just set it up so that it's a fair experience for everybody. And again, the rational intent here is we want to establish fair guidelines for everybody to follow, right? And we want to make it clear for everybody in the tournament what is and isn't allowable behavior. All right. Did I do a better job this time?
Yeah, a really good job, John.
All right. Anything that you think we should add?
Not really. I mean, the intent is people want to use that space to gain an advantage, and that's what we're trying to prevent. The entire rule is to prevent anyone from having an unfair advantage over other teams. And onto the adult issue, it's never acceptable for a parent or a coach or any other adult to be the one actually doing with the device. The students are the ones that should do that. So hopefully we won't have anybody reporting or have any issues with that this year. So.
All right. And moving on, a couple of other things that we talked about that since we did the webinar have now changed. We had planned on doing a virtual student workshop on Saturday, October 5th. Unfortunately, we've had to cancel that event. Hopefully we'll, if the opportunity presents itself again, we will share that out and make sure everybody's aware that that's an opportunity. And since we originally released or recorded this webinar, the deadline has passed for the CCIR grants. CCIR is a new partner. It's the Cambridge Center for International Research. And you'll definitely be seeing more from them and more opportunities to engage with them. But I just want to make it clear that should you be watching this for the first time, this deadline has passed. So at this point, we've concluded our edits. So what you're going to see next is we are going to return you back to the original webinar. Again, apologies for my mistake that caused the need to make the edits, but I hope you appreciate the fact and that we've done a slightly, and the people that were on originally will feel we did a better job of explaining it and been much clearer about these important issues. So thank you very much. And at this point, I'll return you to your regularly scheduled webinar. All right. Next up, another partner that came in. These guys, I think some of you may have seen some of the stuff from them, but they came on a little bit later last season. We did a couple of webinars and outreach activities with them, but this is Ingenious Prep, and they're our preferred college advising partner. They do college consulting, advising support. They got some great free resources out there, but also you can, hire them to help you, get to your college journey to where you want to go. And right now, they have an upcoming 4-part webinar series, right, for high school parents, right? So this is all the things a high school parent you should know about if you're trying to get your kids into college, or to make the process of going from high school to college a little bit easier. And encourage you to check it out with them. The QR code is up there for you to register. We'll also be putting this out on social media and up on the website, and we will be taking and encourage you guys to reach out and participate with them. All right, stop here real quick. We got a couple more. Okay. Laura asked, will there be another student workshop day? October 5th is an SAT test day. Sorry, not at this time. We only have that one scheduled. I did not consider SAT testing as a potential conflict. Sorry about that one. Tessa asked, what grades is the CCIR grant for? Tessa, that is for high school teams, so Division C teams. Okay. Eric Kaufman asks, is the virtual workshop a one-day workshop? Will there be other workshops for students? Eric, it is a one-day workshop, 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Central Time. And at this time, we don't have anything scheduled, but this is our first foray into student workshops. So we'll see how it goes. And if there is, we will certainly let everybody know. Okay. So anonymous attendee regarding the virtual student workshop, students from a group up to attend the workshop from one device. But the intent of the workshop is, like all workshops, one participant per registration fee. Because it's virtual, because it's online, we understand you will do what you will do, but the intent is one student registers, one student attends, that they not gather and group up. Okay. No, the student workshop will not be recorded. It is a live only event. Yes, you're correct. Students in Hawaii, the timing is going to be difficult. Sorry about that one. The requirement for the grant is you need to apply Parathana asks about the requirements for the grant. Just a few simple questions to ask or to answer in the application about, some details about your program, students, what you're using, what you kind of intend to use the money for. But we tried to keep it a very simple, straightforward application. So doesn't take a ton of time. Okay. Nahid asked, will the student workshop cover all events? Yes, all the workshop, the student workshop will cover all the events, and all 31 of them. So there's blocks of sessions. We'll have more information up on our website this week about when, different events will be taking place. Effectively, a student can see, I think, we're doing it in four different blocks. So they'll get to see up to 4 events over the course of the day. Jessica asks if the workshop is closed out, will the video be for sale? We haven't talked about that, and our intent is not to record, but we will, if that changes, we will definitely let you know, and we'll kind of consider it. All right, moving. Let's see. Let's check up top. Plans. Okay. All right. So, just want to highlight some resources for coaches that are available. I've talked a lot about, and probably the number one place I recommend everybody starts their journey is at the Science Olympiad webpage. Couple of different ways to think about navigating the site. We have the great kind of tiles that are on the webpage, and they'll take you to different places. But place I always end up starting is up here under menu, because when you click on menu, it's going to show you all the main pages, all the sub pages, and it's pretty easy to navigate. And you can find everything there, from all the unique elementary materials to pages for every one of our events. We have a unique page, both high school and middle school, for all the events with resources and information on it. There's an entire section up there for event supervisors on how to run events. There's a section on policies. We got a page for invitational tournaments. We got a page for upcoming workshops in the state. So there's a bunch of different resources here. This is where I would encourage you guys all to start. Moving on, the next great resource, if you haven't checked it out lately, is our YouTube channel, Science Olympiad TV. This is where all of our recordings, webinars, videos we produce go up. There are now, as of the earlier this afternoon, 2 new videos that you may want to consider using for student recruitment or early meetings. It's a Science Olympiad is for you. There's a short version and a long version talking about the program and how you can benefit. You'll also see videos from the various ceremonies and some of the activities at our recent tournaments, as well as, again, workshops and things we've done on a variety of topics. After that, Science Olympiad store. Here's where you can find all the resources we make available. This is where you can pay registration for coaches workshops, for the student workshop. On Monday, we'll have up the national, and actually I'll jump to the next slide because I think I have them, the national test packet. So the copies of the exams that were used at last year's national tournament will be up and available. We also have a set of resources called either starter packs or starter stacks. Starter pack is a resource unique to an event where you get some notes and some released exams to get you started on preparing for the event. Stack, you can kind of build a bundle for yourself, or you can grab one for a particular category. So chemistry and physics, biology, earth and space. Plus we have the coaching programs up for both middle school and high school. That's the one on the top, and then the elementary school one is down below in purple. We also have resources for working with students with disabilities and recommendations on accommodations that can be made for various event types. We also have some other resources up for elementary school as well. If you want materials and you want to save yourself the hassle of trying to find stuff on your own, you can always go to Ward Science. They're our licensed kit partner. So they will have resources and things you can use to build for towers, helicopter, electric vehicle, scrambler, robot tour. You can get an optics set there. They also have, if you're tired of trying to scrounge and find all the different pieces of equipment you need to bring into a middle school chemistry event, they have that already packaged and bundled up for you for middle school and high school. Plus they have various activities for forensics, crime busters, chem lab, potions and poisons that you can buy to practice and learn more about those topics. There's a whole bunch that are ready to order and ship right now. The rest of the collection is being added to the website, and they will be ready to ship by October 1st. All right. Last but not least, if you are interested in fundraising and you're looking for new ways to do things, I'd encourage you to check out our fundraising partner, Double Good Popcorn. If you've never experienced Double Good before, they have, I think, a really awesome fundraising model. Everything is done through social media and online. You as the coach would go in and create your team store, and then you would give the information about the store out to all your team members and parents and have them push it out to all their friends, family, coworkers, and that on social media. And people just go there, use a credit card to buy the popcorn. Cool thing about Double Good is they give you 50% of the sale price comes back to you. And I think the nice thing about it is it's actually really good popcorn. They do they make everything fresh for you. So it's not like you run your fundraiser and they're shipping out popcorn that was made 6 months ago. Once your 4-day selling window ends, they look at all the orders that came in, then they start processing it all and they send it. They then ship it right from their assembly line to your supporters. You never have to touch product. You never have to do anything other than create the store and push it out on social media. Um, and you may have heard me share this story in a variety of settings. Like, I 100% hate fundraising. My boys have been in athletics since they were really little, and it seems like we're multiple sports, constantly expected to fundraise. We did a fundraiser for Double Good, just for Science Olympiad, to try some stuff out. And I don't have a huge social media footprint, don't have a bunch of followers, and still I was able to raise almost $2,000 with minimal effort on my part. So if you're looking for something different, you're looking for something easy, I would definitely encourage you to check that one out. All right, we'll go back to the Q&As. Okay. Anonymous attendee asked the question, the coaching packet that was on the previous slide, what worked for middle school? I'm assuming you're talking about the coaching programs, that we've broke them into elementary, and then there's a middle school, high school. So if you're really looking to work with middle school kids, I would encourage you to get the yellow covered one that says secondary or coaching program for secondary schools. All right. Lucinda asked a question, are the rules available in Spanish? No, we do not have um, a Spanish translation available of the rules. There are some resources that we did for Write It, Do It. And I believe one other event that you can find on the event pages where we've done some translation into Spanish, but not the rules specifically. All right. Sharon, I think hopefully I got that close to correct. Sharon asked the question, generally speaking, where do public school teams get the funding to develop a team? Every place is different, but there's almost every team has some fundraising component to it. But I know some teams have done it through, they'll do it through fees from the kids. Some will do it through sponsorships and school foundations. Sometimes will help teams out. But almost all of them generally have a sponsorship, or I'm sorry, a fundraising component to get their budgets. Okay. Anonymous attendee, how do I create a team at my school? My state has a Science Olympiad program, your school does not. Anonymous, if you're interested in getting help around that, I would encourage you to go to the Science Olympiad webpage, soinc.org, and go to menu. If you click on menu, over on the far right-hand side at the bottom is a contact. You'll see a link that says contact the national office. Click there, send us an email, and be more than happy to talk you through it. All right, another anonymous attendee asks, so when does the first event take place? Like the date? That's going to depend upon your state. I can tell you the very first invitational tournament starts in, I believe it was October 5th, is the very first invitational. But the actual kind of main competitions and everything that happens, you got to check with your state chapter. I'd encourage you to do that by going to your state website. If you don't already have that, you can find that by going to soinc.org. And there is a tile on the main page that will take you to all the state websites. Okay. Anonymous attendee asks, is the national test packet useful for creating placement tests for team members? It can be. The I think the national test packets sort of can be useful in that regard and can be useful in showing you the kind of questions that can be asked. I think some of the challenges for a number of the events, the content changes. So it's the content, you could be great examples in anatomy and physiology. It's 3 new organ systems this year. So you'd be asking kids knowledge of, what do they know about organ systems that aren't going to be on this year's test. But I think you can get creative in how you interpret the results and interpret the data. I think there are other places that you can get resources and that kind of thing if you're really looking for help with tests and identifying team members. Can your school, anonymous attendee asks, can your school have multiple teams? How many can go to state tournament if multiple teams win regionals? Anonymous, that is all a state chapter question. So you're gonna have to reach out to your state director. Again, if you don't have that information directly, 2 ways you can get a hold of that person. One way is you can go to soinc.org, click on the state website tile, find your state, you'll find contact information for your state director there. Or if you go under menu, and then go to the same webpage, soinc.org, click on menu in the upper left-hand corner, go over to the kind of lower right, you're going to see contact my state director. That'll take you to a list of states. You can click there and send your state director an email, ask them those questions. All right. Celine asks, I want to know what a student will learn in the student workshop. During the student workshop, he or she or they will have the opportunity to learn about 4 events at the very least, and that will be from a Science Olympiad alum who has competed previously in that event. So they will learn how to break down the rules. They will find out things that are important. They may learn some new content associated with the event, depending upon what the event topic is. It's very similar. The idea behind this workshop is to do very similar to a workshop we've been doing with coaches, both nationally and in states for several decades, but we're trying to make it available to students to give them sort of a opportunity to really get in, deep dive into their events, ask questions from someone who has competed in that event previously and sort of understands what they may be going through as they try and prepare for that event themselves. All right. Depicna, I apologize. I'm hoping I'm getting close. Ask the question, how to register your team for an invitational. Easiest way to do that is if you go to soinc.org, click on menu, scroll across the top row, you will see tournaments. There will be a link that takes you to our invitationals page. You will see all the invitationals listed. Almost all of them give us a link to their registration site. You click on it, you go to the tournament, you click on a tournament you want to go to, and you click in there and complete their registration documents. All right, anonymous attendees asking about tests used as an entrance exam for my school. If you really don't, if you really don't want to create the exams yourself or you're looking for something comparable, I know a previous question, I don't know if you were the individual that asked it, but was about the national test packets. Honestly, probably a better resource for creating entrance exams, tryout tests, that kind of thing, is the our starter packs for the event itself. Because, and the nice thing about that is those tests target the information the kids are be expected to know at the end of the year. So it gives you, I mean, that may give you a leg up on helping understand what kids know stuff. I'll be honest with you, I'm not, and I'll be honest, I'm struggling to give you a great answer because I'm not a big believer in the entrance exam for picking your kids. That's not really, just because a kid's a great test taker, that may not be, at least to me, that's not the most important criteria about picking kids for your team. And if you give me a minute, I want to get to a couple more and we'll get to there. Okay. Aditya asks, where can students get access to additional practice tests and resources? Well, there's stuff I talked about in the store, plus there are the event pages at soinc.org. On the event pages, we'll put up resources as invitationals make their tests available. We'll get those up there. Another place you can check out is like a number of our partners. So NOAA has great instructional resources. CDC has resources. We got some great stuff from NASA, and all those things are going to be on the resource pages for the kids. Okay. Charitha, could you put another question in a little more detail about how you can get an invitation? I'm not sure what you're looking for, but I'm more than happy to help you there. Okay. Anonymous attendee, is there any way to know what you got wrong on a test/event? For invitationals, yes, because those are practice. But if you're talking about regional, states, nationals, no. Regional, state, national tests are never returned to the individuals. All you find out is what your overall rank was compared to your competitors. Okay. All right, Nahid asks, how do invitationals differ from regional, state, nationals? The big difference between invitationals and those other three is your performance at an invitational doesn't affect what happens to you the rest of the season. So if you don't do well at a regional and you're not one of the top, I don't know, 3 to 10 teams at your regional, you may not get to go on to state. If you're not one of the top 2 teams or the top team in most states, you don't get to go on to nationals. So for an invitational, the great thing is it's a practice for the kids. They get recognized, they'll get medals, the team gets a trophy if you do well. But none of that impacts what happens with the rest of your season. All right. So Aditya asks a question about how does hosting an invitational help a team improve? How can we advertise our invitational more schools? Dan's typing an answer for that one, so I will let him tackle that. Oh, so the question is how to find out what invitationals are about. Again, you can go to the Science Olympiad website, soinc.org, right? Click on menu, scroll over the top row, you're going to see tournaments. It's usually like the second or third link under tournaments. Click invitationals. That will show you all the invitationals and resources for, and then each resource will tell you dates, location, type of format they're doing, and then you can click there typically and get to their registration. But okay. So Robin asked, we'll discuss a new event during this webinar. I wasn't going to get into specifics of individual events, but if there's one you're looking for, please feel free and we'll go ahead and I'll try and get to it, or we'll try and get you the resources to help out what you're looking for. Fairfield County homeschoolers asked, well, metric mastery. Yes, metric mastery is going to be there. It may be an older student sharing their experience. Okay, so but we will have somebody talking about and helping the kids with metric mastery. And last but not least, anonymous attendee asks a question about, do we dictate methods for teams, especially public schools, to select students? No, the team selection is entirely up to the team itself. So it's driven by policies and procedures that the school wants to set. That is not something that, outside of saying a general membership requirements and kind of general eligibility rules, we do not get into the specifics of how Science Olympiad teams get picked. Okay. Sharithra, the question about number of teams at regionals, that is entirely a state level decision. So you got to ask your state. Anonymous attendee, yes, Crime Busters should be expected to be at your regional. All right. I'm going to try and get through a couple more stuff. Thank you guys for bearing with me. This kind of gets into some of the questions that some people are asking when you build your team. 3 pieces I want you to keep in mind. One, you're going to want to involve more than 15 students. There is a significant difference between involvement in the team and how many can compete at a tournament. You can only have 15 kids competing at any one time at a tournament, though you can have a whole lot of kids being part of the team. And you're probably going to need them because it's a long season, and you may be recruiting kids now, and kids may have interest now, and kids may want to be part of the team, only to come find out that on tournament day is grandma's 95th birthday, and they're no longer able to go because they're going to be with the family at grandma's birthday party, or find out that the basketball team that everybody thought had absolutely no chance and no ability whatsoever now ends up making it into the state playoffs and has a game the same day as a tournament. So you're going to want to have extra people. The other thing is, I'd encourage you to kind of take advantage of what's called the hanging out, messing around, geeking out triad. And this is a research-based look at how students participate in activities. And essentially what it says is kids bring different levels of interest to an activity. There are some kids that just like to be around. They like coming for the snacks. They like being around their friends. They kind of like the topic. There are other kids that are willing to try stuff out that, okay, yeah, if it's fun, they're engaged, they're going to keep doing it. They're willing to spend some time and put in some effort. And they're the kids that really geek out. Like, this is their life. And I think anyone that's been around youth and talked to youth can see when they hit on those different topics for kids. The beauty here is Science Olympiad allows for and is kind of set up for those kids. We got different events, we got different types, we got different roles. So take advantage of that. And we'll get to a key point here in a second, where that can come in to help you. And again, as a coach, you got to balance the interests, right? So you got to make sure you have the recognize what kind of experience your kids are looking for and kind of provide that and do your best to provide that for them. Okay. When we talk about distributing your team, I think there are a bunch of different options. My favorite is a 3-2-1 list. Basically, you ask your kids, what are 3 events you really want to participate in? What are 2 events that you'd participate in if I needed you to? And what's 1 event that you really don't want to participate in? Now, I'm not saying the kid, and then when you try and match them to events, you try and get them as many 3s as you possibly can, or at least mix and match, from 3s and 2s and avoid 1. But if you're stuck and you really need to put somebody in an event that they don't like, at least that when you go have the conversation with the kid. And you can go in with some knowledge about what it's going to take to get that kid excited about that event. Other thing I would say to do is, and this is where we get into the question about like practice tests and all this stuff. And in my mind, right, the choice has to reflect your culture and participant interest. So like for me, a Science Olympiad tournament is not the end all be all, right? And yeah, it's a great experience. Yes, it's an experience I want to have the kids to have, but really, in my mind, a Science Olympiad tournament only exists for us to give kids a reason to put in time after school to learn more science, get excited about science, explore different topics in science, right? So I'm not worried about who those kids are in as much, or how those kids will do at the tournament, in so much as they're enjoying science, they're learning stuff, they're enjoying each other's company, and we're having a great time from September until March or April when we have our final tournament. Okay. And again, it's got to reflect what your kids are interested in. Now, if you want to be like, if it's all about the medals and it's all about the trophy and it's all about the win, then yeah, I think there are things you can do to help you get that. Understanding entrance exam, like the entrance exams, steal from the sports arena and have depth charts and constantly, but the thing is, if you're going to do that, and you're going to have a lot of testing, you're going to have depth charts, you're going to have a very performance-based system, then you got to make sure you've set things up so that the kids can get their performance checked regularly. They understand when their performance is checked, and that changes in performance have real outcomes when it comes to things like depth charts or opportunities to compete at a tournament or be part of the 15 on a tournament roster. So all that stuff you got to think about and should reflect both you and what the kids are looking for. I would say never try to keep it for only 3 events per team member. Watch overloading a kid with a particular event type. You don't want someone having all build events. You don't want them having all study identification events. And here's where I think a point about the 3 levels of kids comes in. You don't need experts in every seat. Every event is done at least with one other person, right? So having a mix of individuals, right, can go a long way with engaging kids in your team and balancing things out. And again, a big believer that you want a diverse set of skills, you want a diverse set of knowledge, both across the team and in events if you possibly can. Another way to think of it is think about tackling things by event type, especially if you're a coach all by yourself. While we look at it and say there's 23 different events, right? There's really only 4 things we're asking kids to do. Learn some stuff and tell us what they learned, build something and test it, learn some stuff and perform a hands-on task, or some combination of those first 3. That's a Science Olympiad. Those are the events of the Science Olympiad tournament. So if you step back as a coach, if I'm asking kids to learn something and then answer questions on a test, the resources they study may be different if the topic is entomology versus fossils versus glaciers, but the process, the procedures, the skills they need to develop are going to be the same regardless of the content they're trying to learn. And that holds true for building something, that holds true for the lab events, and then hybrid just kind of pull all that stuff together. So think about things from an event standpoint. Other thing I would do is encourage you to prepare for the future. Document your practices. So when you're getting together with the kids, like have a rough idea of what you want to have happen that day. Have a rough idea of your plans. Then note changes, right? Because plans never are 100%. So, or you never execute them fully. So go ahead, make changes. Note where you did things differently. Note activities that didn't really work. And it doesn't have to be perfect, right? You just want things to work for you. I'm a big believer in um, building on the past. So make sure you collect and save your binders. I would encourage you to have a uniform organizational system. Think about electronic storage. And if you really want to get into specifics of that, there's a great chapter on that in the coaching program. But you don't need to, your life as a coach is going to be a lot harder if every year you're trying to reinvent the wheel. And that's why I also would encourage you to save your builds and your plans. I saw a great video of a team that did a massive bonfire of all their devices and all their binders and all this stuff at the end of last season. But the thing is, all this stuff comes back, right? So even if it's not the exact same, for example, towers, there's been some changes, right? It can serve as the basis for new seasons. You can oftentimes that certain elements will be the same. So you can see like, hey, this is how we assembled the backstop the last time Scrambler was in. And worst case, sometimes you're going to reuse parts if you need to. All right. Wrap up questions. And I apologize. I thought I was going to be able to launch a poll, but it doesn't seem that I can answer. I can fire the last one off. Wait, let's see. No, I am not going to be able to get the last one. So this is something I'll make a note of and change for next time. You will be getting a survey at the end to give me some feedback. I'm going to take a look at the Q&A and the chat, and we'll kind of go from there and see if there's still some stuff out there. Yeah, so regarding VG, asked a question about the virtual student workshop be released. Yes, there will be a thing up on our website this week, so you get to see when different sessions and what the conflicts are across events. And then Anonymous asks, how do we prepare for build tryouts?